Welcome back to Northwest Elite Spirit. I'm Coach Brian. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do that now. This is Memoirs of an Endurance Athlete. I get a lot of questions about how I do the things I do. I've been a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, mixed martial artist, weightlifter, and now ultra runner. And along the way, like I said, I've been getting a lot of questions about like how I do what I do. So I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning and tell my story, and we can figure it out through that. So of course, like you and everyone else in general, my running around and my energy levels started when I was a kid, when I was out running around on the playground or running around in the yard playing. I just never really lost that interest or that ability to do that. So back in the day, I was always very active, very athletic, climbing things, running around, like I said. And then we moved from Seattle to a small town. And in that small town, I think I lost being active just a little bit, but I was still running around quite a bit. I remember breaking mileage records for like sixth graders or something like that. And so after sixth grade and just kind of adjusting to our new environment, after adjusting to our new environment and actually moving to a new place, so we moved to one house in this small town, then we moved to another house in this small town, and that second house had a very big side yard, maybe half acre or something like that, and it was just a big strip. And my mom had landscaping material delivered from my uncles, like cinder blocks and tires and small logs and a picnic bench. And so nothing ever really got done with it, so I just started moving it around the yard. I think I moved it one time just to like get it out of the way because it's all in the front and it was kind of ugly, just in a pile. So I piled it up in the back of the yard, and I was like, oh man, that was like, you feel the pump when you do something like that. And so I decided I wanted to move it again, and I moved it again. And then after moving it around a few times and feeling stronger each time, I saw ways that I could like lift cinder blocks. Like you can curl cinder blocks, or you can like lay on your back and you can bench cinder blocks or lift them above your head, just all these different things. And the picnic bench, I would do figured out how to do crunches and push-ups and jump ups and even what are they called, squats, or deadlifts. And then I figured out that I could get a running start and jump over the width of it, get a running start and jump over the length of it. We had an above ground pool. I would stand next to it and jump in from the outside and just do that over and over again. Get a whirlpool going and going the other way. Lots of kids do that sort of thing, but I did it, to get stronger. I would get a whirlpool going and then go the other way. And just all these different ways of working out. And I think, that just added to the endurance I already naturally had. And I think I got this from my father. My father was an athlete, and I think I got a lot of my genetics from him. At the same time that I was doing all that, I was going to the library. I'm an avid reader, and I was checking out yoga books and karate books and judo books and meditation books and different types of mind experiment books, and I was doing those just as diligently as all the rest. I was skipping school a lot too, but not really. Like I said, I was reading and studying and practicing, but just not what everybody else was. I was putting in just as much time, if not more, into physical, mental, and spiritual practices. So after I started doing that, I made a couple of friends, actually. One was the main one who would go with me, but there were two. And we would run down to the indoor pool, because we found out you could go down there for $1.50 you could lift weights, swim, use the hot tub, and use the sauna. So we would run down there, lift weights, use the hot tub and or sauna, and then run home. And we didn't really think about that as training, like for strength or anything like that. It was just a way to go lift weights. And so that is, I think, where I got my main like training for running. My start was running to the gym, working out, and then running home. And I think that's too where I got like the strength and endurance, because you endurance train by running there, you lift weights, you endurance train or strength train by lifting weights, and then endurance train by running home. So I think it's the start there. In that yard where all the landscaping material was, one day I decided to just dig as big of a hole as I could out near the back, and I just dug this huge hole, very wide, deeper than I am tall, and then I just filled it back in. And I think that just is some sort of testament to like how my personal brain works, like moving the landscaping equipment around. It's just like repetitive movements, and while repetitive strenuous movements is something I enjoy. And I think that it goes towards this where I'm at now with ultra running. So doing all that, but then I start like drinking and smoking weed. I'm still, working out. I'm drinking, smoking weed, and I'm going to school, high school sometimes, mostly for weight training class. And in weight training class, we would have to warm up for like a mile before we lifted. And even though I was like partying and never going to school and not in any sort of practices or anything like that, I was able to come in first, second, or third with a soccer player and a track guy every time we would warm up. So that, there's confidence that you could say I might have like a natural talent, I don't know, or it's just that I've just been so active since forever, never really stopped. So coming out of, weight training in high school, coming out of high school, and lifting like a lot of weights and eating a lot, and I'm working at this restaurant where you get a free meal a day. And so for my weightlifting, to stay bulky, I would eat every day. I would eat a fat roast beef sandwich on sourdough with sliced egg, a sliced boiled egg, a sliced pickle, green lettuce, bean sprouts, tomato, onion, olives, sliced mushrooms, mustard, and mayonnaise on just a fat sandwich, and maybe some fries, and that kept me pretty strong. I wasn't running in that time, just a lot of weightlifting. And as I'm coming out of that, I'm calming down on the drinking and partying and smoking weed, and I meet a girl who I get pregnant and end up marrying, and we start building a life together. I'm still like working out as often as possible. Not super hardcore. I guess for some people it could be, because my workouts are kind of extreme compared to others, I guess. But no particular training in mind. It's just like the thing I do. And she starts getting involved. She starts working out with me, and we buy a house. So we buy this house, and so the crash, which was in 2008, not 2018, we had bought a house, and I got laid off. Everybody around me got like fired or let go, except myself and the guy who trained me. But I hardly had any hours. It was like an hour and a half drive to work, put in 10 hours, hour and a half home, and it just, it was a lot of strain. So when I got laid off, we started working out like even harder, and we discovered P90X and got really strong at P90X. And so completed P90X. Again, like, it's just the mentality of like, I like hard stuff. This is how I did P90X. I just like hard stuff. And I guess there's a challenge to it that I like, but I don't know if that's it. I just find things I like to do, and I do them. completed P90X, was very strong, and then was like, well, now what? And so found insanity. My wife at the time found insanity. So I started doing insanity in the morning, P90X at night, and got really, really strong and even more endurance that way. And around that time, we decided to start running a little bit, and started just by running around the block. And even that was kind of hard, because like runner endurance is not the same. Like you can have like boxers endurance, like where you can sit and box for a long time, and they can build off of each other. But if you go from boxing or anything else and you haven't been running, you go run, it's hard to do. So we had to build up. And eventually, she decided she wanted to try 50 miles. And so we set up a course, the kids and I set up a course in spots where we would meet her. And she ran 50 miles. And along the way, because it was in our area, she saw people that we knew that encouraged her to stop, and she didn't stop. And that was inspiring. She was down for a few days afterwards because she had never done anything close to 50 miles. But she did it, stopped, and inspired us all, and we kept training for running, getting better and better. Another inspiration that came to me for running was we took a group of people to the track, high school track, and there's this old guy there, and he was doing laps, and he was already really sweaty and looked like he'd been there for a long time. And we got in behind him, and we started going, us and this group of people, and we started getting tired, and this old dude was still going, and he was in like a Ben Davis work shirt. He was in work jeans and work boots, and just going and going. And we decided we weren't going to leave until he left. And when he left, we left right behind him, and we were worn out. So that guy was a lot of inspiration to me. In the midst of all that, as a family, we started doing obstacle course races, like Muddy Buddy, Spartan, Warrior Dash, things like this. And we all did very well at those. We always placed. We always did well. But around that time, like my relationship with my wife at the time was not really ever that good, and it was getting worse and worse. So as that's going on, we hear about Bigfoot, and so we both start training for Bigfoot. There's a lot of look at me in the world, and I feel like that's what was going on. Like, she didn't want me to be seen as an ultra runner too. She wanted to be the runner. And so that added even more to the toxicity of the relationship. So we split, and after we split, there's a race that comes up called the Mountain Marathon and Hillbilly Half, put on by Gorilla Running. And I go there, and I had gotten her and I a sponsorship. This was when Zero Shoes first started out. I had gotten us a sponsorship from Zero Shoes, and I was wearing Zero Shoes for this race. And and it's got nothing to do with anything, it's just like part of the story. I come down flying into this big mud hole. It's a 26-mile race that I'm involved in. About 4 miles in, I come flying into this mud pit, and one of my shoes sucks off, like back behind me, because my momentum, I kept going. I go back, I look for it, I can't find my shoe, and so I keep running, and it's awkward running with one shoe, so I take the other one off and I keep running. And this is on Rock Candy Mountain in Capitol Forest, and some people that know me and watch this may know about Rock Candy Mountain. It's a dirt bike course, so it's like got gnarly rocks and dirt and V's and chunky rocks and little rocks, and it was snowing at that time of year, and so I tore up the bottoms of my feet like really bad. I finished, but I messed up my feet really bad. Went to the hospital and got checked out, and ended up not walking for about 2 months. and doctor said I probably wasn't going to run again and would might not walk again. But I never believed that because, of course, I've been practicing these things, power of the mind, since like forever. Like when I was a kid, I could put my fist through a hardwood door. I can't do it anymore, but like just through these mind practices, there's all these things you can do. So I never believed him, and I was always interested in the power of the mind. So I took inspiration from this guy who was in a hospital, and like in that movie Kill Bill, where she's like, if I could just wiggle my toe, this guy went through kind of the same thing. And I don't know if Quentin Tarantino got that idea from this story or not, but this guy, he gets in an accident, some sort of accident, and he's paralyzed. Totally, he'll never walk again. He's in the hospital, and he's like, if I could just wiggle my toe, that's a start. So he wiggles his toe. He remember how he does it is he remembers what it feels like to wiggle his toe, and he does it. And then he's like, okay, what's the next step that I can take? And he says to himself, well, I know what a hospital floor feels like when I'm walking on it. So he started imagining walking on the hospital floor, and then he started started doing that. And then he imagined what bare feet felt like on like parking lot, and he did that. And then his main goal was to get out into the surrounding trees and feel his feet on the leaves that had fallen. And he eventually did that. And all through the imagination, he imagined what it felt like to wiggle his toe, imagine what it felt like to walk on hospital floor, imagine what it felt like to walk in a parking lot, imagine what it felt like to have leaves crunching under his feet, and that helped him to be able to walk again, built those connections that go down to your legs, and he was able to walk again. So I took inspiration from that. And so I'm hurt, I'm laying in bed, can't walk, and I'm doing like crunches and shadow boxes from my back. In that time, talk about, if you want to talk about my determination. So I had visitation with my kids. So the relationship with my ex had ended, and I had visitation with my kids. So I would roll out of bed, crawl to my car, get in my car, drive, crawl to their door wherever they were at, and my oldest would often give me a piggyback ride back to my car, and we'd go home. And again, that's just like how my brain works. Like I wasn't going to be stopped from seeing my kids because I love them and I want to see them, and there's no excuses. I think that's part of it all too. Like no excuses is going to be a huge help to you in anything that you do. No excuses. We find all like I'm tired or whatever, and we let all these things get in the way. I wasn't going to let anything get in the way of seeing my kids. So in the meantime, I'm doing that. I've ran the bottom of my feet off. And so, how did I do that? How did I end up running the bottom of my feet off? Well, it was these mental practices that I do. Every day, coming up to this race, I was imagining crossing the finish line. Multiple times a day, I would imagine crossing the finish line. So that's part of it. Like it was set in my brain that I was going to finish this race. But at the same time, I was also practicing jiu-jitsu. And maybe 2-3 months before this race, I was in a class and I was rolling with a guy who would try to hurt me every time. I'm like 125. This dude was like 250, something like that. And he was always trying to hurt me. Like you could see it in his face, just gritting his teeth, trying to hurt me. And as him and I are rolling, he has me pinned on my back. And my professor and another guy are rolling next to us. And my professor's probably like 200 pounds. And he's rolling with a guy his size. And the guy his size does like some sort of funky move and brings his knee down on my head, like really hard. Bam! And I'm rolling, I'm fending off this guy who's coming at me super aggressive. And I like look up at the guy who hit me, and I look up at my professor. And my professor, like, he's got like hugely wide eyes. He's like, whoa. and I just go back to rolling, but I'm like rolling and looking at my professor, and like it wasn't a whoa from the knock that I took. It was like a whoa from like, how is he still going? And the reason I was still going was because it's crazy, like when you get a shock, how many you can freeze up and not think anything, or like a million thoughts can go through your head all at once, or just a very few concise thoughts can go through your head at the same time. My thought was, that hurt, can't stop because this guy will hurt me if I flinch, and wow, that really impressed our professor. So it was like those three thoughts. I kept rolling and I finished out the day. Then I went home and I was thinking, like, that was really odd and cool that I could just decide not to feel that in that moment. So I decided I was going to figure out how to do it. And I was like, well, if I bump my toe, I'll just ignore it. If I bump my shin, I'll just ignore it. If I bump my elbow or my head, I'll just ignore it. And I had been practicing that for about 3 months going into this race, and I was able to ignore all kinds of pain coming up into it. Some people thought it was ego. My ex was kind of involved with this race, and she had a new boyfriend there, so it was like, oh, maybe I had something to prove to somebody, or showing off, or anything like that. But it wasn't, I don't think it was anything like that. What it was I had 2 programs in my head that allowed me to do that. So a warning to be careful about, like, we get these mental experiments that people give us, and these techniques that people give us, and new levels bring new devils. So like being able to turn off pain is cool, but the pain that came from it was not cool. Maybe an emergency situation that would. So do that race, hurt my feet, laying around for 2 months, shadow, boxing from bed, crunches. Once I can get up, I'm shadow boxing and doing basic martial arts and boxing footwork in my bedroom to get around, and building up that way. Walking to the car, driving to work, and at work I would stand a lot, so like just moving around in that. And then just building up, going on longer and longer walks, going on small hikes. And then I get I looked on Craigslist for a lot of things at the time, just for like fun things to do. And there's a guy on there who wants a hiking partner to go find Capitol Peak. And I'm like, I got that kind of mileage in me right now, I think. And so I meet with the guy and we head up to Capitol Peak. This guy's got a little terrier that's like really old, like blind in one eye, 3 legs that work, 1 leg that doesn't, is like on his way out really, but loves hiking. So the guy's out there hiking with the dog. And then this dude's like 6'5", 250 or 240 or something like that. Giant beard. He's got this giant staff that he's like spinning around and doing crazy stuff with, and he's singing like, ain't no stopping us now, or like, ain't no mountain high enough, as he's like, all these like chugga chugga songs that keep you motivated to keep him motivated to move. Get near the top, and this is where I discovered how much I like marijuana myself for like athletics and things like this, because my feet were hurting when we got near the top, close to Capitol Peak, and he gave me some of his homegrown marijuana, or he shared some of his homegrown marijuana, and it was awesome. Like, the pain went away, the mood is better when you're not in so much pain. Never found Capitol Peak. We were like right there, never found it. And so this is another testament to like my philosophy is I did not feel bad at all that I didn't reach the goal of reaching Capitol Peak, because it seems to me in my life, if I speak something or I set a goal, I may reach that goal today, I may reach it in a week, I may reach it in 3 years, and oftentimes even goals that I've forgotten about, somehow 5-6 years down the line, it just comes to me and I end up completing a goal that I've totally forgot about. So that's kind of how it was with Capitol Peak, and that's how it's been with Capitol Peak. I've been there multiple times now, so there's no hang up not reaching Capitol Peak. You know, people after an injury or during weight loss or something, they get, I gotta do this thing, or you know, they feel bad about themselves. I went through a lot working my way up to Capitol Peak, and when I didn't find it, it was just like, I'll find it, you know. So come back down, get home, building back up again towards, I guess, running, but I wasn't like training for any sort of running. I was just running. I had forgotten about, you know, trying to get ready for Bigfoot 200 or anything like that. Just running and having fun. And I was on Craigslist again, and I saw an ad for, they wanted help at Bigfoot and Randall for headquarters. And I went down there and I helped. And then the next time, my daughter came to Tahoe and helped, and then my daughter went to Moab with me and helped. And then I think we did them all the next year, and then she didn't help the next year. But that year that she helped again, so the first year I didn't get to get away from headquarters much. Oh wait, no, I swept for a little bit at Tahoe. But I really wanted to get some miles out there on those courses, and I started, I would course mark and sweep and get in lots of miles that way. For anybody that wants to do any of these races, course marking and sweeping, volunteering for those things are excellent ways to get out on the course and get to know the people involved. And not just get to know the course, but get to know yourself on the course, because some of these courses are really hard. Actually, all of them are hard over the duration. You can get little chunks in though and really see what you're getting yourself into for this. And I would suggest that when you show up, have respect for what you're getting yourself into. Course marking and sweeping are not necessarily easy tasks. You have to come prepared and don't overdo it. There's people that have shown up and did part of their task and thought they could do other things, like do their own little runs on the side, and then come back and they can't complete the task because this terrain is hard. Moab terrain is hard. Bigfoot terrain is hard. Tahoe terrain is hard. So show up with respect. Show up and course mark and sweep, but have respect and be ready for what you're getting yourself into. So go through all those. At Bigfoot is where I really felt good about where I was at in my training, because just the feedback I was getting from experienced runners. So while all that was going on too, I was working a lot and trying to do a lot of other things. And another way I would get in my training would be to I'd run to the grocery store, load up on groceries, and fast walk home. Or I would run to the everything that had to go to the post office, I'd run it to the post office and run home. I'd run to Walmart and run home. If I had a little side gig somewhere in town, I would run to that gig and run home. There was a guy selling vintage sports gear and stuff like that 9 miles away down a trail that was near our house. So I would run to his house and load up on 50, 60 pounds worth of stuff and then hike home. And so I got in a lot of training like that. The house we ended up living in was next to a forest. You look out our front door and there's a forest, and I could go run out there. So I had all these ways to train. Now, talking to people about running to the grocery store and running home or running to the post office, they don't think it counts. But miles are miles, and I think that's the no pain, no gain thing, or things have to be super hard or whatever for people to feel like they're doing anything. But if your goal is to run ultras and you can get in this training, just go do it. Stop being a whiner and or thinking that you have to be carry boats to be making some sort of progress. You can carry soup too. Run to the store, load up, get a big backpack. So along the way, I earned credit to run Tahoe and Moab. I DNF'd both. I DNF'd Tahoe because I figured I was acquiring high altitude pulmonary edema. And Moab, because I've been a lucid dreamer for a long time, and I was practicing a lucid dreaming induction to put myself to sleep like instantly, and I wasn't prepared for like the visuals that I had on doing that. My visuals were so powerful I didn't think I was sleeping or getting sleep, and so I laid down for a really long time and would not be able to finish the race in time. But I've learned my lesson since then. So after those, and I was getting ready to do this again. So then I decided I'm going to try the Triple Crown. That's 3 200-mile races. One of them is 240 miles. And in preparation for that, I'm doing my same running stuff. Oh, I bulked up. I did a Olympic weightlifting regimen for about 3 months and got up to 135 pounds while doing short miles. And then when that was over, I increased my miles and my weight got back down to 125 pounds. And after that, I started running to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu of Olympia. And I could go through my forest and it would be like 20 miles to get there. But eventually, like the last quarter mile before you reach town grew over with blackberries and stuff like that. So I had to go along rails to trails, which ended up being 26 miles there, which I had tried before on rails to trails, but all the concrete hurt my feet, so I decided to go through the forest. But I found a way to do it on rails to trails without hurting my feet so much. I'd go to jiu-jitsu, and I was doing that to like get some no quit. So I'd go there. Of course, you quit. You like tap out if you're in a bad spot because you don't want to get hurt. But then you just go again. And then my friend would drive me home after that. So did that for a few times, but then I caught COVID there, and I didn't want to risk catching COVID again or anything and putting my run training at risk. So I stopped going. It did put me down for about 2 weeks. Then after that, my training kind of slid off a little bit. And then we had to move, which kind of cut into training a little bit anyway. But we moved to the same town that Bigfoot is in, Randall, Washington. And I was able to get up on the trails around there a little bit and train. Not a whole lot because it's a lot of concrete up to the trails and, kind of lacking on money. So the gas money to get around was lacking. But I was getting up in there a little bit. And I had found out that I wasn't, that Bigfoot, Tahoe, and Moab runs were in jeopardy. And along with all the running, or the moving and stuff, I decided that there's just too much to try to figure out how to make everything happen, and I was just going to do it myself. So I ran 200 miles around Gifford Pinchot from Randall by myself. And I did it in 103 hours and 58 minutes. I had put a goal of 104 hours, so I was 2 minutes shorter than my goal time. And then I decided to do we'll talk about that a little bit. So in preparation for that, I was doing a lot of mental stuff from the lessons of Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda's book. First, Chinmaya Mudra, he talks about curling your fingers gently, which a lot of runners know already. But this is a mudra that they do in like yoga and meditation. And it's the yoga of supreme awareness. It's supposed to make you aware of what's going on around you and bring you energy. And I think it did. I did this almost the whole 200 miles. When I reached around 175 and my daughter was pacing me, she had to keep reminding me because my thoughts were getting pretty slippery. And this last 100 miles that I just did, I was able to do it the whole time. So also, being grateful, practicing gratefulness. Don Juan talks about thanking the plants out loud, like not being embarrassed. Embarrassment is a thing you got to do away with here. Like I think even running to the grocery store and home, people are just embarrassed to like run into the grocery store with a backpack, fill it up, and then walk home. Maybe they're afraid of the homeless or something like that. But like getting rid of embarrassment will relieve so much weight from your life. It'll be such a huge burden gone to just get rid of embarrassment. Who cares what other people think? Do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. So thanking the trees out loud, thanking the plants, thanking the animals, thanking the sun, because it gets really cold at night. So when the sun comes in, it's really warm. Thanking the sun. The sun causes the flowers to open up. The sun hits the ground and scents come up. So you're thankful for those things. Leaning against a tree and just like, oh, thank you, tree, big beautiful tree type things. Thanking the darkness for allowing me to face my fears, because when you're out there, there's a lot of sounds, and it's the unknown. You don't know what's going on, and so there was a lot of thanking the darkness, letting go of things, like Don Juan talks about, not being so attached to the world. So when you're out there running, you can start thinking about something somebody did, or something somebody said, or something you're gonna say, or something you're gonna do, and just letting those things go. I took from Byron Golden, I would take an example from him, and I would say, when things like that were going on, build energy, redistribute energy, save energy, until those thoughts would kind of disappear, and that would disconnect me from all those sorts of things. So Don Juan, when he's talking about practicing letting go, in one respect, it's so you don't use people up. So during one section of my 200-mile race, my crew wasn't there at a place where I needed them to be, and I got frustrated for a minute, but I let it go. And again, I could have got very mad and wasted energy on being mad, and then I could have also, when I found them, wasted energy being mad, but also put a damper on my relationship with the people around me because of my attitude towards a mistake that was made. So I'm not using people up. And again, like when you're out there in your mind, and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say that, and then you go back and you say this and you say that, or you do this or you do that, you put a lot of pressure on people and you end up using them up. They may stick around and keep putting up with that thing, and they may not. But if they do stick around, that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the right thing. So finish that race. So we can talk about what I ate during that race. It was like soup and squeezies. I like a lot of Mountain Dew when I run these things. I don't know why. When I was on the fishing boat working longliner, I don't know if you've ever done that sort of thing, but it's really hard work. And I really loved Lucky Charms the whole time. I ate so many Lucky Charms. So maybe it's a sugar thing or something like that. So the fruit squeezy things, Mountain Dew, and trail mix. Really love that stuff. So moving on into towards the 100 that I just did. Still training. I ended up helping. My daughter and I ended up helping at Bigfoot 200. And there we met some people. And there was a guy there who wanted to, they call it, second sweep the Bigfoot, and I was going to do that with him, but I didn't think his and I's energy would match. So I decided not to be on that course, and I decided to run the Pacific Crest Trail from White Pass to Snoqualmie Pass and back. It says on Gaia that's 98.5 to Snoqualmie Pass. I think it's more, and I'll kind of get into why. So I get a helper that I met at Bigfoot 200 named Sean. My daughter is crew lead, and Lois Peterson as a maybe, and she was going to be here and there. And we head out. Sean helped me run the first 7 miles, and then he ran back to go and meet me at the next spot, which would have been Natchez. And come out too fast, which is normally my habit. Come out too fast. I'm aiming for 3 miles an hour. We're going 4, but we tone it back. I end up at Natchez at exactly 3 miles an hour. I was able to navigate it. How I get that 3 miles an hour is chugga chugga music, hut 2 3 4 music. I find music that's hut 2 3 4, hut 2 3 4, and you can either do hut 2 3 4. You can do hut 2 3 4, just whatever, or you can do hut 2 3 4, and whatever. Just as long as you keep moving, you can hit that 3 mile an hour pace. So I get to Natchez, eat 2 wraps, have a ginger root beer, which is so delicious. That might be my new thing outside of Mountain Dew. I'm feeling great, full of energy, and I head out to Mike Ulrich camp. I took food and water for 20 miles because that's what it said Mike Ulrich camp was. Ended up being like 24, 25 miles. So I was hungry when I got there and thirsty. No crew there. Turns out they couldn't get there. Again, irritated for a second, but I was like, I can do this. Keep going. I ended up going about 35 miles in 11 hours without food. I had a little bit of water that I kind of spaced out, but I didn't get irritated. I ended up getting hungry, but I wasn't irritated with my crew. I figured something happened that I was unaware of. And I took, again, example from someone else. Michael McKnight did a 200-mile fasted run. So I was like, if Michael McKnight can do 200-mile fasted run, I can do like whatever to my next meeting place. Or even to the end, because the end from Mike Ulrich camp was only like 70 miles or something like that. I don't remember. So I'm running, I'm starting to get hungry. I tell myself that about Michael McKnight. But then I start getting like lightheaded and my stomach is growling, and I tell myself out loud, you're not hungry, or I'm not hungry, my stomach isn't growling, I'm not lightheaded. I said it out like 3 times and it all went away and I kept going. Now that isn't to say that people should do this or try this, this is just what I did. So along the way I come across a guy named Ziggy, and I'm asking him like how far away Stampede Pass is, and we figure that out because Stampede Pass is the next stop. He gives me a bunch of food and some water. I tell him my situation, ask him his advice. He said it depends on what you want to do. Keep going towards your goal or turn back. Kept going. Got the Stampede Pass, no crew. Oh, and along the way to Stampede Pass I found a waterfall to fill up my water with. So I had food, I had water, and just kept going past Stampede Pass. Came to Stampede Pass. Oh man, so I forgot about on the way to Mike Ulrich camp. Night fell, and you have all of these sounds, big animals, I mean, it's not like an exaggeration because it's night and I don't know what's going on. There are big animals moving around out there. And at one point, there was a lot of sound, so I had my bear spray out. And I'm walking down this thin path. There's like brush here and here. Path is thin, and branches are already like hitting me on the body. And I hear crackling like right next to me from something really big. And it's so close that it like moves the branch that's at my head, and it like hits my head. And I turn and I spray. I go, ah! Spray it, and I hear it go crashing off through the woods. And I was scared for a second, honestly, but again, letting go. I couldn't hold on to the fear. That might cause me to go dashing off through the woods over a cliff or something. So calm down, keep running. Pass Ulrich camp, get to Stampede, and no crew there. I'm sure it's Stampede, but I don't see a crew. Go up the road a little to see if I could see some signage. No signage. But as I'm coming to the road, before I go to see about signage, again I hear something in the brush, like right here next to me. And I'm like, got my bear spray out, and I'm looking, trying to see what it is. I can't tell what it is. So I go up and look for signage, come back down because I see no signage. Sure, it's Stampede Pass. And as I'm coming back to the trail, a big old black bear comes out of the woods, maybe 30 feet away from me. I have my bear spray. I go, oh shit! And he looks at me, and we stare at each other for maybe 4 seconds. He runs off into the woods, off that way. Again, I like calm myself, and I go up the trail. I knew that we were going in different directions, so I stayed mellow. More of the chugga chugga, just chugga 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 chugga. Stampede Pass. From Stampede Pass is Snoqualmie Pass. That's the last stop. On the way there, though I got like 3 hours of sleep at Mike Ulrich camp, like I could tell that I was getting tired. darkness fell. I'm chugging along, and I sit down to do something, turn my headlamp off because I'm trying to preserve light because, I haven't had a recharge in who knows how long. And I notice that I'm wearing glasses. I'm not wearing glasses, but I'm hallucinating that I'm wearing glasses. And I'm like, whoa, like, trip out. I'm hallucinating. And I'm like checking out the frames, looking over them, how people do, how they like tip down their glasses and look like, I don't know, I look under them, and then I look through them to see if I can actually see better, and I couldn't. And I decide, okay, you need some sleep. So I start priming myself, something I actually figured out at Bigfoot pacing or sweeping with a guy. We laid down for 3 minutes, and I had a really hard reset the times we did that. I could lay down and have a hard reset. So I laid down, counted to 60 seconds 3 times, got up and moved, and I did that a couple times just to kind of prime myself. And then I laid down and I went to sleep for like 3 minutes at a time. And I did that about 3 times on the way. It was like 12 miles between Stampede Pass, or probably more, 12 miles on Gaia, but it was always wrong. But between Stampede Pass and the Snoqualmie Pass, I took some like 3-minute hard reset sleeps. And to kind of, I didn't want to hallucinate so much that I went running off into the woods. That was another piece of advice from Don Juan. When you're out here, when you're out in the woods and you see something odd or strange, don't pursue it. Don't go chasing it. It can lead you off into some dangerous places. And then I finished in Snoqualmie. I came out at the end of a parking lot where my crew wasn't. Lois was on the other end, like at the, I guess, the official way you come out. But once I was over Snoqualmie, I couldn't figure out where to go. So I just came down where I thought. Didn't see her anywhere. It was cold and raining, and so I just wrapped up in my emergency bivvy and slept in between some rocks and a sign that had a little ease over it. Woke up, found a motel room, rented a motel room, even though I didn't know if I was going to be around for 2 hours or a day or what. Started getting a hold of people because they were starting to I knew they would start to get worried and maybe call search and rescue, and they were close to calling search and rescue. We all got together, had some food, talked about going back the other way, and I had the energy to go back the other way, but I just wasn't sure that the vehicles were going to be able to make it, because the reason that they weren't at the places before was because the vehicles had such a hard time getting in, and I wasn't going to put them through that or the vehicles through that, and I didn't want to end up out there for a long time without food or water again. Had a great time. So I guess we could talk a little bit about like my food in preparation for all this, like in between time. My daughter is always cooking just pretty healthy food. I eat a lot. I don't have any recommendations for like how many calories you should eat because I eat a lot of calories. And for me, the more I eat, the further I go and the stronger I get. I don't really gain weight unless I'm really trying hard, like with that Olympic weightlifting regimen that I did. I gained like 10 pounds. That's about all I can really ever gain. And I bet if I would have kept going, even with just the weightlifting and small runs, I would have dropped back down to 125. I would have just been really stacked 125. That seems to be the way for me. So I never have to worry about food. We don't eat a lot of junk. We eat some junk sometimes, but not a lot. For the races, it's like soup, Mountain Dew, and the squeezes and trail mix that I like the most. The Chinmaya Mudra is an awesome one. I think everybody should try it out. A lot of you are already doing the finger curls. Try the Mudra. May not work at first. Don Juan says at Carlos one time, when Carlos says something that doesn't work, he says your body's just too stupid to know it's working. A lot of these things are like that. You're not aware enough of your body's reaction, and you haven't had time to build up strength into where it can be obvious to you that these things are working. Try Chinmaya Mudra. I'm moving on to another mudra here soon, but try Chinmaya Mudra. Were you going to say something?
Charcoal and ginger?
Yes. Charcoal and ginger for stomach issues that you have. I have had stomach issues at some of the races. Ginger, we all know ginger is good for stomach aches, but should also remember that charcoal is good for you. I've had people make faces and even comments when I say charcoal, but just try to remember the first thing they give you when you go to the hospital and they suspect poisoning or some sort of like something going on with your stomach, gastrointestinal problems, they give you charcoal. Try it out, see how it works. Don't argue about it until you've tried it a few times. The Hut 234 pace is really awesome. I know some people say music is cheating, but you can listen to music before you go for your run, and you don't have to go listen to music when you go for your run. And it's kind of like learning music. You're learning your body's music. So if you find a pace, because for me, there's a certain pace where even if I'm moving, I get way more tired than if I just pick it up a little notch. And that Hut 234 pace is perfect for keeping that momentum. If I slow down a little bit, I get worn out way more easy. Chi running, you're leaning forward from your ankles and letting yourself kind of fall forward and catching yourself. So if you want to learn, if you don't have a way to train trails right away, and you're in the city, do step on a crack, break your mother's back. This is another place where you're going to have to get over the embarrassment of looking silly when you're running around town. But it'll teach you to pick up your feet up over something, and you're picking them up over these lines. And you'll notice that they're not always as evenly spaced as they seem. So it kind of mixes it up. And it gets harder. The faster you go, the harder step on a crack, break your mother's back is. So breathing, it's just like in rhythm with your voice or your footsteps. In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4. But I also like to keep the tip of my tongue on the roof of my mouth. And this helps me keep breathing through my nose, which I like to do. But it also keeps moisture coming into my mouth. So like when I was thirsty from not having water, that helped generate moisture in my mouth. Another thing you can do for moisture and even to fill up your stomach a little bit is to take your tongue and rub it along your teeth, and that'll generate moisture, but it'll also generate a froth that you can swallow if you're hungry, and that'll fill your belly a little bit. I also picked like little bundles of pine needles and sucked on those when the thirst got really bad, like when I wasn't able to generate moisture through those things. I picked pine needles and put those in my mouth and sucked on those and chewed on those a little bit. So that step on a crack, break your mother's back is going to help you with your footwork, and it'll help you to be more dancing and like light on your feet rather than slamming down on your feet. When you slam down on your feet, you bruise your heels, but you can also you bang up your knees and your hips. And again, your thoughts will create your attitude. So if you're thinking about what you're going to do and what you're going to say about something that's bugging you, that's just going to drag you down and bring your energy down. It's going to make you heavy, and it's going to make you not pay attention. You're going to stub your toe, you're going to trip, you're going to fall. So let that shit go and pay attention to your foot, the trail in front of you. Oh, another good thing for Chin Maya Mudra for me, I noticed on this last one, was I was able to kind of pick, as I'm running, picking where I'm going to put my feet. It's more advanced, but that is something you can work your way up to. And if you do stub your toe, there's something I noticed about when I was training people for fighting, and I'd have them doing footwork drills, like ladder drills. They'd be going well, and then they'd make a mistake, and then they just make that same mistake over and over again. And when Sean was running with me, I stubbed my toe, and then he stubbed his toe. And I was talking to him about it, and I asked him, when you stub your toe, do you normally stub your toe really soon after? And he was saying yes. And he was saying too that he thinks really negatively of himself when he stubs his toe. And I think that's got something to do with it. When you stub your toe or make a mistake, let it go. Do better the next time. Don't think about it at all. Pick your feet up. Pay closer attention. and let it go, or you may end up just stubbing your toe over and over again, being stuck on that. It's like what you imagine is what happens. It's kind of like that. So that's all I got for you right now. I may have missed something. I had a script, but I didn't bring it down here with me. If you have any other questions or thoughts, just put them in the comments below. Of course, that'll help the algorithm, right? If you have no comments or thoughts to put in the comments below, go ahead and just drop an emoji, because again, it all helps. I'm Coach Brian with Northwest Elite Spirit. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and as always, practice. For access to my suggested library, my blog, my shop, and my Elite Performance paid packages, go to northwestelitespirit.com. This has been Memoirs of an Endurance Athlete. Thank you.